Welcome back. Today I want to talk about the main image we use for our own minds. We almost always talk about the brain like it's a computer.
Oh, absolutely. It's all about processing data, running algorithms, memory storage.
Right, your hard drive for memory. And
Mhm.
sometimes you feel like you have too many tabs open and you're about to crash. It's the metaphor of our time. It's computational, it's cold.
It is. And it's appealing, because it implies a certain kind of control. If it's a computer, you can just
What?
rewrite the code
Exactly. Reboot the system.
and everything should be fixed. It suggests that change ought to be instantaneous.
Which is the problem? Today, we're going to argue that that computer metaphor, as useful as it seems, might actually be holding us back.
And it makes us impatient.
It makes us impatient, and it completely ignores the biological reality of how we actually work. So we're going to try to flip the whole image.
Okay.
We're going to argue that your mind is not a machine at all.
Got
It's a landscape, a living, breathing ecosystem.
And that one shift, that changes the entire approach, doesn't it? Because you fix a machine, you can swap out a part.
But you can't do that with a landscape.
You can to a landscape. You have to nurture it. It runs on seasons, not clock cycles. You can't force a seed to become a tree in an hour, no matter how much you want to hack the process.
We're looking at the invisible architecture of character. The idea here is that so many of the things we think happen to us, bad luck, our constant stress, our problems, they might actually be happening because of us.
Which is a really confronting idea. I mean, it takes away the comfort of being a victim.
It does.
It suggests the world on the outside is, in large part, just a reflection of the world on the inside.
It does. And our map for this whole exploration is James Allen's classic from 1903, As a Man Thinketh. We're looking at what we're calling the thought garden.
But we're not just staying in the past. We're layering his ideas with some much older wisdom,
Right, the Stoics, people like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus.
and then bringing it all the way forward and stress testing it against modern behavioral science. Things like habit loops and neuroplasticity, the real biology of how a thought becomes a thing.
The goal is to get really practical, to move from just positive thinking to something more like cognitive engineering.
How to actually tend the soil of your mind to change your reality.
Before we really get into the dirt, though, a quick request. If this episode helps you, please hit like and subscribe for the next one.
It really does help us keep making these.
Okay, let's grab our tools. The thought garden. Allen's core idea is that simple. The mind is a garden. But let's be honest for a second, that sounds a little soft, doesn't it?
It does sound a bit like a greeting card. I'd give you that. Something you'd see stitched on a pillow.
Exactly.
But it only sounds soft until you really dig into the implications. Allen says the mind can be intelligently cultivated, or it can be allowed to run wild. But here's the part that isn't soft at all. He says it must bring forth.
Meaning, it never stops. There's no off switch.
There's no neutral. Biology doesn't have a neutral gear. A garden doesn't just sit there, empty. If you leave a patch of dirt alone, what happens? It doesn't stay clean and brown.
Weeds. Total chaos.
Weeds, immediately.
Yeah.
If you don't plant flowers, you don't get empty space, you get weeds. Automatically.
Yeah.
A computer can be idle. A garden cannot. That soil is always, always generating something.
That's actually a bit terrifying when you think about our modern attention spans. We think when we're, just scrolling on our phones or worrying or just zoning out that we're in neutral, we're just pausing. But Allen would say we're actively growing something in that moment.
Precisely. You're growing the weeds of anxiety or the weeds of distraction. His whole framework is that every single action you take springs from a hidden seed of thought. Nothing just appears in your life.
Yeah.
No habit, no mood, without a seed being planted first.
So if our thoughts are the seeds, then the harvest is
What?
our life.
Our character and our circumstances. That's the fruit. He argues that joy and suffering aren't just random weather patterns that hit us.
They're the harvest.
They are the harvest. What we reap from our own work in the garden. If your harvest is constant anxiety or conflict, it's because those were the seeds you planted and watered maybe seasons ago.
So we're all master gardeners. We just might not know it.
We're always gardening. The only question is whether we're doing it with a plan, with intention, or if we're just letting the wind blow whatever it wants into our soil.
So let's break this down. Let's make it super practical. If we're the gardeners, what are the actual tools? We've sort of identified 4 key elements here: planting, watering, weeding, and then the soil itself. Let's start with planting.
Planting is all about what you choose to let in. It's about where you direct your focus.
It's the active selection of where we place our attention. But what does that really look like? Is it just having a thought?
It's more than just a thought passing through. It's about cherishing a thought. That's the word Alan uses. The Stoics had a word for this too, prosocha.
Socho. What's that
Yeah.
exactly?
It means vigilant attention, guarding the door of your mind. It's like being a bouncer for your own consciousness, checking the ID of every thought that tries to get in.
And this connects to actual biology, doesn't it? Something called the reticular activating system, the RAS.
Exactly. The RAS is this bundle of nerves in your brainstem, and its job is to filter everything. It decides what's important enough to let through to your conscious mind.
It's the reason why if you decide you want to buy a new blue car, suddenly you see blue cars everywhere.
Right. They didn't just appear. They were always there. Your RAS was just filtering them out. But once you planted the seed, the thought of the blue car, your brain starts humping for it.
You've told it this is important now.
That's planting. You're tagging a thought for your RAS. You're telling your brain, find more of this. And that works for goals, but it also works for grievances.
So if I cherish a grievance, if I decide my coworker is undermining me, I've planted that seed.
And now your RAS will scan every single email, every tone of voice, every meeting for proof, and you will find it. Even if it's not actually there, you'll interpret things to fit the seed you planted.
Okay, so the seed is in the ground. That's step one. Now, the second element, watering. This is where I think the real mechanism is. Alan talks about dwelling on thoughts. What is the biology of dwelling?
This is my favorite part because modern neuroscience has just completely proven what Alan and the Stoics were saying. The mechanism is called long-term potentiation, LTP.
Long-term potentiation. Okay, break that down for us.
The simplest way to put it is the old saying, neurons that fire together wire together.
I've heard that.
So when you have a thought, a little group of neurons fires in a sequence. The more often they fire in that same sequence, the stronger their connection becomes. They get sensitized to each other.
Well, they become a team.
A very efficient team.
Yeah.
But it's even more physical than that. When you pay attention to a thought, let's go back to that grievance about your coworker. You are literally directing metabolic resources to that specific neural circuit.
What do you mean, like blood flow?
Blood flow, oxygen, glucose, energy. This is why the phrase attention is the water isn't just a metaphor. It's a literal energy transfer.
You're feeding it.
You are feeding it. And then there's myelin.
Myelin, that's the insulation around the nerves.
Exactly. Think of a nerve like a bare wire. Every time you use that circuit, your brain wraps a little more myelin, a fatty insulation around it.
Right.
And myelin can increase the speed of the electrical signal by up to 100 times.
So by dwelling on my anger, I'm not just thinking an angry thought. I'm physically building a high-speed fiber optic cable for rage inside my own head.
You're turning a slow, overgrown dirt path into a 6-lane superhighway. And then we wonder why we get angry so quickly. We've spent years paving that road.
So that's the harvest.
That's the harvest.
Yeah.
The Stoics knew this. Epictetus used a different metaphor. He called it the bonfire.
The bonfire.
He said every time you act on an emotion or even just indulge in a thought, you're throwing another log on the fire. If you get angry today, you're not just having a bad day. You've added fuel to the anger bonfire, making sure it burns hotter and lights up faster tomorrow.
That really raises the stakes on all the little things, doesn't it?
It does.
We think, oh, I'll just complain for 5 minutes. That's harmless. But what you're saying is that 5 minutes is a structural reinforcement project.
You're casting a vote for the person you're going to be tomorrow.
Which brings us to the third element, and maybe the hardest one, weeding.
Weeding is about what you refuse, what you say no to.
And this is where most of us fail, I think, because weeding feels bad. It feels like you're depriving yourself.
It feels like a loss. Because we get attached to our weeds. We feel justified in our anger or our anxiety.
But I have a right to be upset. Look what happened.
Exactly. But a gardener doesn't ask if the weed has a right to be in the garden. The gardener just asks one question. Does this help the harvest I want? If the answer is no, it has to go.
So in modern terms, this is things like cognitive reframing or what Ethan Kross calls distanced self-talk.
Right. It's the mental trowel. It's the active process of seeing a thought come up a weed, like, you're going to fail, and consciously saying, no, that does not belong here, and then replacing it with something better.
We'll get to the how on that in a minute, but first, the fourth element, the soil.
The soil is your environment, your influences, the people, the content, the places you spend your time in.
Alan has that incredible line, environment is but his looking glass.
It's so profound. He's saying your outer world is just a mirror of your inner world. But on a practical level, the soil is what nourishes the seeds. If your soil is toxic, if you're surrounded by negativity, if you're mainlining terrifying news all day, you're just making it impossible for good things to grow.
You're dumping salt on your own field.
Or you're allowing what you could call airborne weed seeds to land. You can be trying your best to plant roses, but if your environment is constantly blowing dandelion seeds of gossip and fear at you, you're going to spend all your energy just weeding.
And mirror neurons play a huge part in this.
A massive part. We are wired to mimic the emotional states of the people around us. If you're in a room full of anxious people, your brain starts to fire in an anxious way. You literally catch their feelings. That's the soil. You have to protect it.
I really want to double click on this weed problem because this is where the metaphor gets painful. We all like the idea of planting good thoughts, but we underestimate the weeds.
We underestimate the active nature of neglect.
Yes, neglect is not a neutral act.
Not at all. Alan's warning is so clear. If no useful seeds are put in, an abundance of weed seeds will fall therein. It's a guarantee.
But why? Why don't we just default to being calm or happy? Why do we drift toward worry when we're not paying attention?
It's because the brain wasn't designed for your happiness. It was designed for your survival.
The negativity bias.
Exactly. Think about our ancestors on the savannah. If one of them missed seeing a beautiful flower, what's the consequence?
Nothing. They miss a nice view.
But if they miss hearing the rustle in the grass, that sounds like a predator.
They're dead.
So our brains evolved this incredibly powerful threat detection system, the amygdala, that is constantly scanning for problems, for what could go wrong. If you don't actively take the controls, your brain will simply revert to its factory setting, which is fear scanning.
So going with the flow is actually just going with the weeds.
In most cases, yes. The current naturally flows toward worry unless you actively pick up the oars and row in a different direction.
Alan even categorizes these weeds. He doesn't just say bad thoughts. The first group he points out is fear and doubt.
He calls them the enemies of knowledge, which I love. He says they crystallize into habits of weakness and irresolution. If you water the seed of fear, you will harvest failure. It's a direct line.
And then there's resentment and anger.
Oh, those are dangerous seeds. He says they crystallize into habits of accusation and violence, and the harvest is circumstances of injury.
That sounds a bit mystical, though, like karma.
It sounds that way, but it's purely behavioral. We've all heard that resentment is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. If you're walking around all day with a hostile, angry inner monologue, you start to project that. You interpret a neutral email as an attack. You snap at your family. Over time, you create the very conflict you were stewing over. You manifest the injury.
And the most common one for many of us, I think, is negative self-talk.
The internal chatter. It's like a parasite that chokes out everything good. And this is what leads to what we could call the weed loop.
The weed loop.
That's when a repeated negative thought is no longer just a thought. It becomes a deeply ingrained habit loop in your basal ganglia. It's a physical structure in your brain now. It's not a weed anymore. It's a thorn bush with deep, deep roots.
So how do we actually begin to cultivate this garden? Let's get into the method.
Step 1 is the simplest and the hardest. Notice your dominant weeds.
You can't pull a weed you don't see.
Right. Most of us are so fused with our thoughts, we think they're reality. We don't say, I'm having a thought that I'm a failure. We say, I am a failure. Awareness creates that crucial little bit of distance.
It's that stoic practice again. Examining impressions. Stopping the thought at the gate and asking, are you what you appear to be?
Exactly. Then, step 2, choose one seed to plant.
Just one, not a whole packet.
Just one. This is so important. Alan calls it a single aim. So many of us get motivated. We try to change our diet, our exercise, our mindset, our relationships, all on Monday morning.
And by Wednesday, we're exhausted and we've given up on everything.
You burn out. So just pick one thing and connect it to an identity. Don't just say, I want to get fit. Plant the seed. I am the kind of person who takes care of their body.
I like that. Okay, step 3.
Water daily.
Consistency over intensity.
Absolutely. You can't water a plant for 8 hours on a Sunday and expect it to be fine for the rest of the month.
Yeah.
It needs a little bit every single day. And watering, in our metaphor, is that repetition and that emotional engagement.
Firing that circuit, building that myelin.
You got it. And then finally, step 4, remove contradictions and triggers.
This is guarding the soil.
It is. It's a kind of information hygiene. You have to remove the inputs that are watering your weeds. If you're trying to plant a seed of calm, you just cannot spend an hour before bed scrolling through stories of global catastrophe. You're working against yourself.
Okay, let's make this really concrete with some examples. Work, relationships, and habits. Let's start with work. What's a common weed at work?
The complaining loop.
Oh, yes, the venting session. We tell ourselves it's healthy to get it off our chest.
But all we're really doing is rehearsing the negativity. We're watering the seeds of dissatisfaction over and over. The boss is an idiot. This project is pointless. I'm underpaid.
And the result? The harvest.
It crystallizes into a habit of being dissatisfied.
Yeah.
And you become the person who brings that energy into every room.
Yeah.
It's not a path to promotion.
So what's the seed we plant instead?
The seed of craftsmanship or service.
Even if you hate your job.
Especially if you hate your job. You shift the focus. You decide to do the task beautifully, not for your boss, not for the company, but for yourself, for your own pride.
You take your agency back.
You're no longer a victim of your job. You're a craftsman practicing your art, even if the canvas isn't your favorite. The harvest is increased skill, self-respect, and often, ironically, better opportunities.
Okay, example 2. Relationships. The weed.
Resentment weeds.
Stewing. Replaying old arguments. Keeping a mental scorecard of every time you've been wronged.
Alan says this leads to a sour face. It literally changes your expression, your posture. The harvest is isolation because that energy repels people.
So we pull that and plant the seed of respect or goodwill.
Right. And you water that seed by actively looking for the good in the other person, or at the very least, by giving them the benefit of the doubt. You interrupt the story you're telling yourself about them.
And the harvest is a calmer home.
A calmer home and often reciprocal kindness. Those mirror neurons kick in. When you offer respect, you are biologically priming them to offer it back.
Last one, habits. The weed here is the impulse loop.
The reactive grab for comfort. The cookie, the phone, the online shopping cart, whatever it is.
Alan calls the result slavish dependence. You lose your own will.
You do. You become a slave to your own fleeting impulses. The seed to plant here is the seed of intentional routines, or self-mastery.
And the action, the watering, is using something like an if-then plan.
Exactly. Implementation intentions. If I feel that urge to check my phone, then I will stand up and stretch for 1 minute. You're gardening ahead of time. You've already decided what you're going to do when the weed pops up.
And the harvest is freedom.
It's the strength of character that comes from knowing you can trust yourself.
Okay, I want to try something now. A little guided exercise for everyone listening. We're calling it the garden reset. If you can, just pause and play along with this in your mind.
This is just a way to put all of this into immediate practice.
All right. Step 1. Identify one weed.
Just find one recurring negative thought. One thought you keep feeding that makes you feel weak or angry or small. Don't try to solve your whole life right now. Just pick one weed. Is it, I'm not good enough? Is it, they don't respect me?
Just take a second. Let one surface. Got it. Okay. Step 2. Name the trigger.
What waters this weed? When does it grow fastest? Is it first thing in the morning? Is it when you open a certain app? Is it when you talk to a specific person? Identify the trigger.
Step 3. Pull the weed.
Now, write a better, cleaner thought to replace it. And try using what we call distancing language.
What does that mean?
Instead of letting the thought be your identity, I am overwhelmed, you create space. You say, I'm noticing the feeling of being overwhelmed. See the difference?
It's a thought, not a fact.
Exactly. So if the weed is, I can't handle this, the replacement could be, I am learning how to handle this. It has to be believable to you.
Step 4. Plant one new seed statement.
Create a short, positive identity statement. Something simple. I'm a person who keeps their promises to themselves. Or, I am focused and calm.
Step 5. Water with action.
This is key. Do one tiny thing today that proves that new seed is real. If your seed is I am organized, spend 3 minutes clearing your desk. Just one small vote for that new identity.
And finally, step 6. Remove one contradiction.
Protect your soil. Delete one app that triggers you. Unfollow one account that makes you feel bad. Decide not to have one conversation that you know will just water the weeds.
That's the garden reset. It's a simple 6-step process.
But it puts the shovel back in your hands. It breaks that automatic loop.
Now, before we wrap this up, we have to talk about the common mistakes, because this isn't always easy.
No, it's not. The biggest mistake by far is impatience.
Expecting a forest overnight.
Right. We plant the seed on Monday, look in the mirror on Tuesday, see nothing's changed, and declare that gardening doesn't work.
The fix is just understanding the law of the harvest.
You have to trust the process. The most important growth of a seed happens underground in the dark where you can't see it.
Mistake 2, neglecting the soil.
Trying to plant good seeds in a toxic environment. It's
Yeah.
like trying to grow an orchid in a salt flat.
So the fix is to curate your inputs. Be ruthless about what you let into your eyes and ears.
The third mistake, the sporadic watering.
Being positive once a week.
Yeah, the I'll do my mindset work on Sunday approach. It doesn't work. A little bit every day is infinitely better than a lot once in a while. Frequency beats intensity.
Okay, mistake 4. This one is subtle. Fighting the weed instead of ignoring it.
Yes. You get obsessed with the negative thought. I must not think about the pink elephant. I must not. And of course,
All you can see is the pink elephant. You're
Yeah.
still watering it with attention.
exactly. The fix here is displacement. You don't fight the weed. You just pour all your attention, all your water onto the flower you do want to grow. The weed withers from neglect.
And the final mistake. Underestimating small seeds.
Thinking that only the big dramatic thoughts matter.
But character isn't built in big moments.
No, it's the sum total of all your thoughts. The tiny little judgment you make while scrolling, the small bit of kindness you think toward a stranger, they all count. They're all seeds.
So let's just do a quick recap of everything we've covered. It's been a lot.
It has. So first, the mind is a garden, not a machine.
Thoughts are seeds, and they will inevitably produce some kind of fruit.
Neglect is an act of danger. If you do nothing, weeds will grow automatically.
So we have to actively weed out things like fear and doubt.
And we have to consciously plant seeds of purpose and identity.
Remembering that our attention is the water that makes things grow.
And that ultimately you are the master gardener of your own destiny.
It's a message that carries a ton of responsibility, but also a ton of hope.
It is. It means no matter what your garden looks like today, even if it feels completely overgrown, you can start. You can clear one tiny patch, you can plant one new seed. And if you tend to it, it has to grow. That's the law of nature.
We're going to leave it there for today, but this isn't the end of the metaphor. Next time, we're going to talk about harvesting the garden.
Yeah, we'll get into what happens when the fruit actually ripens. And maybe more importantly, how to deal with the harvest from your past planting. What do you do when the consequences of seeds you planted years ago finally show up?
It's a crucial follow-up, so we hope you'll join us for that.
See you in the garden.
Thanks for being here. If you want the full series, check the playlist, and please like and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.